Are you a nonprofit leader of tomorrow? You are, but you haven't realized or accepted that driven purpose yet. Are you an active citizen with dogmatic activities that you have a dream that would address problems in your community? From joblessness to homelessness, from economy development to social outreach, and from healthcare to elderly care? You need some additional funds? Wouldn't it be nice to acquire donations from others who have been inspired to join you in your efforts and to ensure your vision comes true? Well, thank you for participating in today's session, understanding how to become a 501c3 organization and understanding what that process is. So I guess you're wondering, who am I, right? So my name is Dr. Patricia Williams. I'm the founder of Organization of Hope. We also are a 501c3 organization. And what I like to say is what our mission is we help people navigate through life's interruptions and life destructions. So today, if you wait all the way through the session, I have a very special gift just for you. So we have the objectives that we're going to go over in this presentation. You're going to understand the life cycle of a 501c3 utilizing the internal review codes. You're going to appreciate some of those benefits and responsibilities that the IRS requires. Then we're going to learn some basics about whether or not you even qualify, are you eligible for it. And then we're going to even talk about what are some of those pre-501c3 submission documentations that you may want to consider, start gathering, getting together. So when it is time for you to become 501c certified, we hope that you do, you have a better understanding what that includes. Some of you understand what it takes to be a tax-exempt organization and maintain the status of your organization. First, you should know the term 501c3 refers to Section 501c3 of the Internal Review Code, where the rules and regulations governing exempt organizations are found. Tax-exempt organizations are commonly referred to as 501c3s. Now, 501c3s include both public charities and private foundations. Now, look at the list. Can you find how your vision aligns in these categories? Maybe your first question may be, what's the difference between a public charter and a private foundation? And I'm so glad you asked. So the main difference is where the money comes from. Now, generally, a public charity has a broad base of support. For example, personal contributions, businesses contributions, where a private foundation has a very limited source of support. Does that make sense? So you asked about churches. Do churches have an exemption too? Good question. Churches, including synagogues, temples, and mosques, don't even have to file for tax exemptions. Yet they're still exempt from federal income taxes, and contributions they receive are tax deductive. But even though they aren't required to file an application, many do receive a determination letter, which we'll talk about later, that proves their tax-exempt status and specifies that contributions to them are tax deductible. Not bad, huh? So you're asking yourself, so you had a passion for helping animals since you were a child. Considering starting an animal rescue to fulfill your life's dream of preventing cruelty to animals. You've heard it might be advantageous to obtain tax-exempt status, but you're not sure what that's all about. Can tax-exempt or 501c package help you? Well, I hope by the end of this training you won't need my assistance to answer that question. We look at the life cycles of a Section 501c3 organization. They include starting out, applying for exemption to the IRS, required filings, ongoing compliance, and significant events. Well, the first two steps, starting out and applying for exemptions, are unique because you should only do them once for any single organization. So we're talking about the starting out and applying to IRS. Now, when you start talking about required filing, and the ongoing compliance with significant events, well, based off the type of organization you have, you may have to deal with these multiple times and in different ways. So is there one cookie cutter for the entire cake? Absolutely not. They have different shapes and sizes. But will the IRS explain that to you? Do you have a knowledge team that can support you in understanding what you need to do? Absolutely. So don't be afraid that you don't understand everything to apply, let's start with the first step, just starting out. And understand that there's a lot of information that is on the IRS.gov. And then you will find charities and nonprofit sites. So we talked about what those characteristics or similar functions are. Now you're saying, I want to be a charity, so what's the test? So remember in grade school when you were taught the cumulative theory, A plus B equals C? Well, with 501c3 equations, I, PW, have created my own version. I call it the ORT, organizational test, plus the OPT, operational test, equals 501c3. Well, if you've ever served, thank you for your service. We service members love to create acronyms. Shorter is better, right? So for all the charity tests, all types of tax-exempt organizations must meet them. Look to your left, it identifies the organizational test. Look to your right, it identifies your operational test. So if we were in grade school again, the teacher has given us the equation and she even gave us the answers. How cool is that, right? So when you're looking at creating your policies and procedures, your governing documents, guess what? Refer back to your operational and organizational tests and ensure that you're writing them correctly so when the specialist receives your documentations, you can easily pass. So you're probably going to ask me, okay, I see those bullets, PW, but let's talk further about what is operational test. Well, the operational test covers how the organization is actually operated. Now, to pass the operational test, your organization must show that its principal activities will be to further its exempt purpose. So if your organization is set up to help homelessness, you can't be running a bar utilizing that organization. And we'll talk more about how you can lose your organization or 501c status. So conversely, your organization has to limit the participation in certain kind of activities and absolutely restrain and refrain from others. Now, okay, what about organizational tests? So this test is used to determine if the organization is properly organized. 3 criteria. And again, if they are identified in your organizational documents, the test should be easy to pass when you get to the IRS for analysis. So you ask me, so what are the responsibilities? So if I decide that I want to go and become a 501c3 organization, what then? So have you ever heard the question, if it was easy, anyone could do it? Well, the IRS gets hundreds of thousands, did I say? Hundreds of thousands of applications per year. And to ensure they comply, or that you comply, you have requirements. So no idea. Well, anyone that works for someone or has to report to someone from time to time, we have to follow their rules. And unfortunately, not the ones we prescribe to ourselves. So just for example, like if you don't pay your tax for several years or owe the government, actions, consequences. So let's talk for a few minutes about some of these items that are listed here, like record keeping. Whether you call it knowledge management, record management, hey, it's whatever you call keeping the books. You should keep detailed records, including records you probably want to keep for any business. For example, you're required to keep the books and records detailing all the activities, both financial and unfinancial or non-financial. And most organizations sometimes ensure definitely we got the financial pieces, but the non-financials not so well. So remember, you need to keep the detailed activities of financials and non-financials. And they, IRS, they help us out. They're good stewards. So you can go to publication 4221.pc, which is called Compliance Guide for 501c3 Public Charities, and they have information on why you need to keep the records, what records you should keep, and how long to keep your records. All right, let's move on to annual filing requirements and returns. Now, the IRS doesn't need to see all your records on a regular basis. Calm down. But the records you keep will allow you to have everything you need to submit your required annual filings. Now, most public charities are recognized as tax-exempt under Section, I'm listening, come on, 501c3 of the code. And they are required to file an annual information report, either, I'm going to talk about a few forms, the Form 990, 99EZ, and then there are other certain categories of organizations like churches and very small organizations. They aren't even required to file one at all. Or they may have to do something that we like to call 99N, or also called the e-postcard. So everybody doesn't do it the same, and it's okay. And IRS will tell you exactly what you need, because typically they send you the information and tell you, hey, just like when you haven't filed your taxes the last year, IRS will say, hey, we haven't received your tax returns last year. Here's a friendly reminder. So they will help you in case you forget or you fail to do your annual filing. Now keep in mind, this is important because the IRS will take your 501c3 status away if you don't do your filing, your annual filing. So please, please make sure you do that. Now let's look at public inspection. What does that mean? Are you trying to say that, or maybe the question is better, who else do I have to show these records to? So you tell me I have to record them, I have to have detailed records, I have to turn in some reports now, I have to have public inspections. So do I have to make all of my records public? No, not all of them. There are specific records that need to be made public upon request. Now, Section 501c3 organizations must make their exemption application and the 3 most recent annual information returns, which is your 999s, available to the public upon request and without charge, or except for a reasonable charge for copying. Now, if your organization has 1,000 or more in gross income for an unrelated business, you must file a 919. But we'll talk more about that. So who should I keep these records? You should make sure all of your documentations are available in your principal office during regular business hours, and requests can be made in person or in writing. So that is one of the requirements that IRS does make as a requirement to 501c3s. The public can ask for it. They can do it in person or in writing, and typically without a charge or for a copying fee. So let's support those taxpayers who have supported us to get these tax deductibles. Now, charitable contributions. I'm getting tongue twisted, but it's all right. So donations, for example, must be in written format from the charity that includes at a minimum the charity's name. Now the EIN is pretty good, so at the end of the year with the taxes, now with TurboTax, it'll even ask what's the EIN number, you can put it in and it self-populates it. The contribution date and the amount. I say again, the donation letter or whatever the form of communication is has to be from the charity that you received it from. So if you got it from somewhere else and you're using their EIN, you may want to consider in case you get your own records audited. So let's talk about what are the advantages of 501c3s. Give me a moment because I have a pretty laundry list there. What does all of that mean? Now I'm sure most of you will see the tax deductibility of donations. That's a large driver why most people even go towards 501c3s, because we need additional funds, and it helps when people want to contribute to our organizations, to our vision and mission to support others. Government and private grants opportunities. So, as you know, there's a lot of grants out there that affords us the opportunity to get grants and receive funding. If you're doing food banks, you're doing homelessness, you're doing substance and alcohol abuse, foster kids, there's a lot of grants that the government gives out. Having this 501c3 status provides you the opportunity to be able to compete with others who are doing same and similar activities, but with government and private funds versus you utilizing your own resources to do so. So why not diversify the portfolio of funds? Now, I have found this to be very interesting. There's a lot of stores and businesses who each year have a category line that talks about donations. So if you're a 501c3 and you're having an event and you would like them to participate in somehow or provide some donations, Home Depot is great. I worked for them for about 5 years, and we've given a plethora of things away to our community when they come and ask. So being afforded, having the opportunities to become a 501c3 not only helps you, it helps others as well. And there are a lot of organizations that are out there that are willing to give you advertisement discounts and other things simply because of the things that you do and who you're doing it for. So good for you. Now, of course, areas to watch. So please be mindful that there are many infractions that you could lose your 501c3. You've worked so hard. You've done very good diligence. You've done all your paperwork. Let's try to avoid the areas, and especially around this time, election time, knowingly or thinking that it's okay, people sometimes intervene in political campaigns or have influential personnel lobbying on their behalf. Also, a key point is unrelated business income. So again, if your swim lane or your business, your mission is one thing and you're doing something else, a different trade, then make sure either you go get another organization to do that unrelated business income so you don't jeopardize your 501c3. And then lastly, but not important, I think we've said this is a cross theme, failure to comply with reporting obligations. So please do that. These are definitely some areas to watch out. And then when you look to the right, we talk about the ongoing compliance. We talk about the significant events. These are the things that could potentially get you in trouble. This is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to share with you guys the link once you finish with me at the very end. But as a participant, I am providing each of you a copy of OOH 501c3 initial phone questionnaire that I share with all of my clients. These questions are a great start, but the dialogue and the feedback received is where the real process really begins. Now, I hope this provides a good baseline and shares some of the unknown questions that you may have. Now, there are about 25 questions, and for all attendees who take the time and actually respond to the questionnaire, because it's online, and I'll get a notification when it comes through, and because of your efforts and support, I will conduct a courtesy call with you to see how I can support, yes, completely free. A free 501 conference call based off submitting your questionnaire. Sounds good? Free advice? Why not? So what I've also included is a typical table of contents. Now this is just for the traditional organization. I like cheat sheets. I like checklists. It just helps me organize my thoughts and ideas. So what I have shown here for you is a list of 12, but depending on the organization and what is occurring in the organization, you might need to complete something else. Like, for example, that's not listed here. If you have someone else that's completing your package and they will be representing you, maybe like a lawyer, you must complete a Form 2848, a power of attorney and declaration of representative. You are authorizing the individual to represent you when the IRS contacts you. Now, you look up here at the Form 23, easy, and the 1023. This talks about revenue for less than $50,000. If you're thinking for the next 3 years, the income is going to be less than $50,000. You can do a 1023 easy, or you can do a 1023. Now, there's a lot of additional resources on this form, and I definitely encourage you to look at the instructions and the checklist that even the form itself provides, because honestly, the IRS won't process an application if all of the answers on the Form 1023 have not been completed. I say again, the IRS won't process the application unless all of the questions on the 1023 are answered. So if you don't understand something that's on that form, find your knowledge partner, partner with another organization who have their 501c3, Or there's a lot of people, consultancies like me, who will support you in understanding what you need so when you submit your package, it's done right the first time. Make sense? All right. So we keep talking about different type of organizations, may have different things. When you look at the Schedule A through H, this is applicable to, let's say Schedule A is applicable to churches. So in addition to all those forms that I mentioned earlier, you may have to provide an additional form, a Schedule D, because you're a 509A3 supporting organization, or you're a hospital, you're doing a C. Let me bring to your attention Schedule E. Now, some people ask the question, is there a deadline for me to file my Form 1023? Yes, there are time limits. Now, for the tax-exempt status of your organization to be recognized from the day you open, you need to file your Form 1023 within 27 months of the end of the first month it was organized. That was a lot, right? So within 27 months of the end of the first month it was organized. Now, can this deadline be extended? Absolutely, with certain requirements. Does that mean you can't get a 501c3? Absolutely not. What it means is if you're over your 27 months, you just need to submit Schedule E, unlike someone else who opened it 6 months ago and have provided their documentation. They don't have to include a Schedule E. Let's talk about some helpful hints and observations. Just having done this a few years. The following 2 slides are some lessons learned, observations, where people ask, can you guarantee an application is 100% accepted when provided to the IRS? Or some of those lessons learned. So for example, let's look at the organizational status. Before you come and say, I want to file for a 501c3, you actually have to be a legal entity. So you can't put the 501c3 before you go to the state and incorporate and have a registered agent. Another important thing, make sure your organization is in good standards with the state. You can contact your state, you can contact your registered agent to find out if you are, if you're not. Please don't submit your package if your organization is not in good standing. If you don't know, make sure you spend the time to find out before you go. A lot of people don't have their EIN numbers. Some think they don't need it. Well, typically the reason why you're asking to be a 501c3 is because you're going to get income. That's what the 1023 is going to ask you for the next 4-year annual budget. And EIN allows you to open up a bank account. So you can pay people or they can pay you and etc. So you're going to need an EIN. And it's quite easy. Go online now, Google EIN. It typically takes 2 to 4 days. Worst case scenario, I've seen them give it to you in 2 to 3 hours. So they actually have improved that process very well. EIN isn't a problem. You can get it if you don't have it. Let's transition and talk about the board of directors that you want to participate in your 501c3. Most people have a challenge to say, well, I really don't know who I want to select as my board of directors. I promise you, the person you select for your package does not have to live and die with you for eternity. They can actually change. So, for example, when I submitted my 501c3, the only person that's still with me now is my chairperson. All the other initial members are no longer with me for one reason or another. There's no requirement to submit to the IRS saying that my board members changed. There's no penalty for notification. IRS understands that we transition, that we morph, maturity of organizations, it changes. So don't allow the fact that you're not 100% guaranteed that you want this person to be on your board of directors. Select the people. Now, let me caveat it. If you have members that have criminal convictions, make it known. And whoever is preparing that package, I would hope that you would share with that. If you want less resistance and less questions from the IRS, you may want to consider other areas or opportunities or other people to consider. Not saying they can't be on the board. I will promise you that you will more than likely get some information back from the IRS having the discussion or just asking you for additional information, especially if you put someone who was convicted with accounting fraud as your treasurer. And I have actually processed one that someone did it unknowingly to me. Have no more than 2 relatives on your board. Probably for the initiation, when you're submitting, I would just suggest, this is again a suggestion, that no one is related. We're going to talk about the timeline of how long it takes to get the paperwork through the IRS. So consider a lot of opportunities, and a lot of people have a lot of great lessons that you want to consider, because if you want to get more questions from the IRS about certain particular things, how you respond and what you put in your package matters. So to say that it took him 3 months, it took him 2 weeks, it really depends on what you have in your package, how you constructed the package, and everyone does it differently. So there's no time frame and no limit. It is not a cookie cutter. Now, interesting enough, grants. Okay, you start submitting for grants. I was in a workshop just the other day when the guy said, hey, I had to get my board together, I had to get my policy and procedures, now we're ready to submit for grants. So the first question I asked him, I said, does your board have to approve of you guys to go and solicit for grants? He said, no. I said, you submitted your 501c3 package? He said, yes. I said, well, guess what? You should have already started trying to acquire funds. And we'll definitely talk about that shortly. But start submitting for grants now. Even though there's a lengthy process with the IRS, do it now, start it now, and I'll tell you the good news shortly as you continue to listen to this discussion and update. Now, another thing about donations. If you don't plan to make more than $5,000 or accept more than $5,000 in donations, you actually don't have to be a 501c3. It's very similar to your child who works and they don't get to a certain level of income, they don't have to file taxes. The same concept. Now, if you do get over that $5,000, then of course there's a form. You can submit it to the IRS, and of course they will definitely assist you in those procedures. Is a penalty? No. Was it an estimate that maybe you got wrong because other people caught onto your vision and wanted to do more? Absolutely. And they can definitely assist organizations with that process as well. So how long does this take? Now, for the first 3 categories, you may want to consider just a notification in 90 days. I say that again. So probably the first 90 days, I know it says 3 to 11 months, but what we've seen is you get a notification either by mail, fax, or phone saying they received your package. And they may ask you for additional information. Now, if your application is very complicated, the application is assigned to an exempt specialist. They're also called the Eeo Specialist. And this person works directly with you to get all the information they need to make a proper assessment. Because what are they assessing you back on? What was my cumulative theory? Come on, say it with me. I'm waiting. All right, so it is the organizational test, that's correct, the operational test, and that equals what? 501c3. So ORT plus OPT equals 501c3. Doesn't that sound like a little song? See, I'm going to have to consider writing a song to that. All right, awesome. Appreciate your feedback. All right, so now let's go back and look at how long does this take. I want you to give it to me in your blog. Who really thinks how long this is going to take, besides me cheating and saying typically 3 to 11 months? But if anyone who's listening on, share some of your feedback. Now, I will tell you a best practice. I could not believe this. That actually happened. And I know this personally. So the young lady during the summer, we had just finished, we did a summer, and it was during the Christmas holidays. And we actually submitted it at the beginning of the Christmas holidays. She got her 501c3 determination letter in 2 weeks. Unbelievable. And I figured it probably would take longer because it's the holidays. Everybody's out and working. So you never know how long the process takes. Someone may take 2 weeks, 2 months, 11 months. It really depends. Keep in mind, again, IRS gets thousands and thousands of these, and depending on what you have in your application makes a difference. So fortunately, I can't give you the exact amount of time it'll take because it depends on the type of issues involved. Now, some people say, well, can I expedite my package? And you would hear some individuals say, you can't expedite it. There's no such thing as expediting. Well, if you actually go on the IRS website, you actually can expedite. Now, let's be honest. If everyone could get at the front of the line, they would. I know if it wasn't all right in kindergarten, it isn't right now. But there are a lot of organizations who are doing a lot of great things. So out of I think the last I read for 2015, no, I think it was 2013, we had about 250,000 expedited requests, where IRS denied 80% of them. So their level of specificity, their justification level is very fine and to the tertiary level. So then you ask me, so what are those reasons? So if I needed expedited, what reasons would that be? Well, here are some of the justifiable reasons that I have right in front of you. A grant to the applicant is pending and failure to secure. Purpose of the newly created organization to provide disaster relief to victims, emergencies such as flood and hurricane. Or there have been an undue delay in issuing a letter because of problems within the IRS. Good luck with that one. I don't know how many have said there was a problem within the IRS and they validate they had the problem and provide you a waiver. So I would love to see the numbers on what percentage they've actually done for that. But can you expedite it? Absolutely. Ensure when you do it, quote these justifiable reasons, provide supporting documentation, and then let's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. But I got something still in store for you that you actually might like, so come on. So now we're talking about the application submission. It's a pictorial picture that shows you, got it exactly from the IRS website, and it talks about it will give you, within the 6 months, an acknowledgement letter. I say that again, it'll give you an acknowledgement letter. The website is awesome because I know sometimes when you go on customer service and you're getting on the telephone, it takes them forever to respond. The IRS has actually set up a website so you can actually check what month they're processing the 501c applications. Now, when you go online, again, to the www.irs.gov, under the Charities and Nonprofit, where is my exemption application, the site may say November X. Well, that means that application for November is being processed. That gives you a determination if your application has been reviewed and is in that review process, or they just haven't gotten to you yet. So I would definitely suggest you keep going online and checking it so you can make a determination when you think you might be getting the acknowledgement letter or what that time period based off the timeline. Unfortunately, we say 2 to 11 months. Make sense? So knowledge is definitely powerful. It's like the NBA, the All-Star, the Super Bowl. There's always something that we look forward to, right? And so for the 501c3, it's the determination letter. This is our Super Bowl. This is when we have been validated through the IRS to say that you can go and conquer and you are allowed to have several benefits that you weren't initially awarded or you could do. Now make sure you keep this important document, permanent record, safe and secure. There's a lot of organizations that put it out online for public display, for transparency, to let them know I've had it so they don't have to go back and revalidate it through the IRS database. They have it out there and it's present. Now, I've had the question, thank you for soliciting it, well, can a determination letter be revoked? Absolutely. Early in the discussion, we talked about if you don't comply with some of the requirements, if you don't do your annual reporting, you have non-business income, a few more items, and I'm sure the list will continue, that can be revoked. But this determination letter isn't like our car tags. We don't have to renew them every 2-3 years. So once you get your determination letters, there's no renewals. As long as you comply with the guidance, you have this, I would say, for a lifetime, and for those who will take on the ram and the torch when or if you transition. All right, so we've talked about how long it takes. the determination letter, am I qualified or not qualified? Now most people would like to ask, how much is this going to cost me? And in relation to all the work that you're going to do to get to this point, it's a determination you think, but I think it is very reasonable. Now, let's try to figure out what is the range. Now, typically the range is a one-time cost. You put in your entire application, look at those table of contents that we talked about earlier, you put them all together, and of course you put the check in, because the IRS will not process anything without that check. They will send you a notification that says, hey, friendly reminder, you forgot to send your check fee in. And once they do, then they will process. So you're sitting back and says, okay, but I don't know how much this costs. Well, IRS has actually done an estimate, a calculation for you. So if you think your revenue per year is going to be more than $10,000, then it is what? How much is that? Awesome. The if-then chart. Over $10,000, $850. Less than $10,000, $400. And guess where this information is coming from? The 1023 that we talked about, your annual budget, of course, they are going to check your 1023. They're going to look at what you said for the next 4 years your revenue was going to be. And if you happen to get it wrong, trust me, the IRS will definitely contact you and let you know that you have some additional resources to provide to them before they process. Now, one of the questions, some people say, well, if you're already incorporated for the past 5 years, guess what? IRS would like to look at what business you've already done. Most people, when they submit, I won't say most, there's a lot of organizations, they're brand new. They have never even done a dime of revenue. They haven't even opened the doors. Again, we're going based on your business plan, your 1023. If you're in your first 3 years of operation, your last 5, they're going to project it on your annual gross income. So you've gone through the entire life cycle. You're ready to submit your package. You're ready. And so now you're saying, well, where do I submit this IRS package? They give us 2 addresses, right? One of them, if you're sending regular mail, make sure you send certified mail. You send it to the Internal Review Service, P.O. Box 12192, Coverton, Kentucky 410120192. Now, if you want to send an express mail, you need to get it out by deadline or delivery service, because a lot of times when the specialist, the Eeo Specialist, sends you back questions, you have a time period stamp. So make sure you meet those deadlines. And if you have to FedEx it, make sure you do it, especially with certified mail, so your package doesn't get put in the back burner. Those dates when the auditor tells you it needs to be returned back on Monday, X date, make sure it's turned back in. So for express mail, you're going to send it to 201 West River Center Boulevard. And it says extracting stop 312, Coverton, Kentucky 51011. I don't know what the last 4 is, but that's what they gave us. All right, so you know where to send your information. You know based off what process and who you need to send it to. Are you ready? You're ready for the good news? You know, it's like in school. We're always looking for good news. I know I am. All right, so 2 sides of every story. There's 2 coins to every side, or every side has 2 coins. Now, most people aren't aware that once you submit your application, you can actually operate as a tax-exempt organization awaiting approval. I'm going to give you a second to digest that. Don't believe me? Contact the IRS. So in all those 3 to 11 months, all the timeline period I just mentioned, all of that stuff, guess what? As soon as you submit your application, that's why I say make sure you send certified and a copy of it, you can actually start operating as a tax-exempt organization. You can actually start receiving funds, donations. Now, there's the other side of the story. Let's say, for example, you don't get approved for whatever reason. The people that have donated their monies is no longer tax deductible. Or, as a lot of people like to do at the end of the year is, oh, this is December, I need to reduce, I need to donate some money. And then they donate that money to you. But you're still in the waiting period. Guess what? They can't file it on their taxes then. They have to wait until you get approved, then to put it on their taxes. If you choose to become or to start operating as a tax-exempt organization throughout this process, learn more about your responsibilities and make sure you absolutely inform contributors what scenario or where you are. Most people say I'm an interim tax-exempt organization, but don't say you're a tax-exempt organization. So that interim gives you that disclaimer so people, even if they don't know, make sure you clarify. So if they're providing resource to you, they're not caught at the end when they can't report it when they need to or when they thought they could. Does that make sense? Awesome. Or what I like to say, awesome sauce. All right, so you've taken this long journey with me. I definitely appreciate a lot of the questions. I even heard a few laughs when I talked about the coin not being on the right side or the wrong side. And we're going to recap. So I hope throughout this session we've actually talked about the life cycle that you understand. You start out, you apply the IRS, your required filings, that's what we want to get you in, and then the ongoing compliance and the significant events and the benefits. But not only the benefits, the responsibilities, because what you're doing is bigger than you, is bigger than the benefits for tax deductibles. We're out there helping our communities do better, be better, so let's set an example for them. The last thing that you want, or any of us in the nonprofit organization and communities, is want people who don't value what they have and what they do and do it for all the wrong reasons. So be accountable to your process, be accountable to understanding what your requirements are, and we definitely encourage you to learn more and understand what you're doing and how we can support. Now, of course, there's plenty of resources out there, but the IRS has actually packaged most of it for you. They have a lot of hyperlinks. I keep saying go to www.irs.gov, and there are pieces. I mean, unfortunately, you don't have a lot of time and you just want the how-tos. I'm going to tell you about that next. I got a promotion for you. Just wait about 5 more minutes. I know it's time for you to go. But look at the resources. Get connected with your knowledge team. So thank you again. As I promised, you said you would wait. You would stay. You would be entertained by me. Right. So we have our 501c3 free questionnaire. That is about 25 pages, or excuse me, 25 questions long. And they're actually on my website, organizationofhope.org. All one word, organizationofhope.org. And guess what? As a freebie, if you decide this is something you want to do and you complete the information, then you can actually have a free consultation with me to determine whether or not this is something you want to do. How cool is that? All right, now on to the most important piece of the presentation. We want to talk about what questions you have based off what we've discussed today as it pertains to 501c3s. Just no question is a bad question. And feel free on your blog to fill out any questions, and we'll be looking at all different platforms at the same time. So we give you a second, digest your thoughts, and then we're going to start momentarily to talk about what questions you have as it pertains to the presentation that we've had today. All right, I think we have a willing victim. Thank you, Mark. You know, it's always hard to be the first person to ask a question. So Mark is asking, can I have all family members on my board? Mark, unfortunately, we suggest no more than two. Actually, IRS suggests no more than two. And when you're doing the application, we highly recommend that no one is related. Because remember, you can change board members at any time. You do not have to keep the same people you provided for your paperwork all the way through the longevity of your company. And there's no penalty from the IRS. So I know family is important, but from a check and balance perspective, the IRS is saying no. Sorry. All right, I think we have another question. So this is the question that came from April was in reference to, remember at the very beginning we talked about incorporation documents that you have to turn in, so your articles of incorporation. So her question was, well, how long does this last? Is it going to be certified? Do I have to go back to the state and get a certified copy? IRS does not require you to go back to your state and get a certified copy. They are going to verify if your organization is in good standings, but you don't have to go back. Typically, certified copies of an organization last 1 to 3 days. So if a bank needs it or you need to give it to someone and they're looking for a certified copy, great. If you decide to provide one to IRS, that's fine, but remember the time frame. We're talking about 3 to 11 months. By the time they get to your application, you probably have wasted money on a certified copy of your articles of incorporation or whatever document your state is requiring, and it's not really going to matter. So it's really up to you, but something to consider. All right, I think we have another question. The question came as it pertains to how soon can I become a 501c3 once I am incorporated? And the final answer is the following day. So if you receive your incorporation, you are considered a legal entity on the 2nd of January, I would highly recommend that you go and start your paperwork on the following day. There is no time limits between your incorporation documents and filing for a 501c3. Typically, I encourage people to do all the process and all the paperwork all at one time. So as long as you've met the requirement that is a legal entity, you understand the requirements, you are going to uphold those requirements, start tomorrow. All right, I think we have another question. If a relative passed away and there was a 501c3 letter of determination associated with the organization, what can I do or what must I do? The unfortunate thing is with 501c3 letters of determination, it is in the name of the organization, not in the name of the relative. So I would definitely encourage you to get with your legal advisors, but nonprofits are not like CEOs of Home Depot and anyone else. That's why the board runs the organization, not an individual. So I really don't understand the specificity of the question, but if you're looking that your father or mother started the organization, it is still the board's decision on how it's ran, and that's why 501c3s are very important, because it lives beyond the founder. It lives beyond the initial individual. But I do sincerely understand your predicament, and thank you for sharing that question. All right, another question that was asked. Let me look at this again, make sure I even understand it. If there is an individual who has had some infractions in the past, will I be able, and I think what they're saying is they are the ones that want to open up the 501c3 themselves, but they are considered a re-entry or had some other things. please submit. I apologize if I said that in this training that a person who didn't or who have had opportunities before could not submit. You can submit. There are a lot of people who are considered reentries have nonprofit organizations. So be prepared for the IRS to probably ask some questions based off whatever, what has occurred. But typically, if you have passed the operational test, the organizational test, your governance policies and procedures are in place, you should be able to compete just like the rest of them. So it's more about how well your paperwork is done, how you organize and submitted your documentation versus who collectively is on the group. I just couched that to say be careful in who you consider on your boards because they represent you and you represent them. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds to see if we get any more questions coming online. But in the meantime, make sure you visit us on Organization of Hope, our website. Again, I definitely appreciate everyone participating. And another nugget I failed to mention, why would I do that, is if you enjoy these webinars, coming soon on our website and ebooks and a lot of our social media platforms, we're actually doing a book series that is titled From Employees to Entrepreneurship, Your Business Pocket Guide. So look for them. You can read it during lunch. It gives you key information, bottom line up front. It takes all the fluff out of it, and of course I like checklists. So it gives you an actionable document that you can take, utilize, and continue to move forward. I appreciate everyone for their assistance today. I look forward to hearing from you again. We have our blogs. Reach out and connect with me on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. Yeah, and whatever else is coming out there next. Until then, till next time, be safe, be blessed.